Chapter 3701 It turns out that I've been warring for 100,000 years. 3. Han Fei also realized this. Zhang Daqian walked the Tao of Nirvana of giant beasts. Because it was really difficult to find an opponent, he had only undergone Nirvana 5 times. If what eldest senior brother said was true, Zhang Daqian might have a chance to continue to grow. The 3 of them had never been fused. Han Fei had 2 considerations. 1 was that it was useless and a waste. The other was that all things 3 had a drawback, which was that only when the 2 avatars were at the same level as the original body could the 3 be fused. Of course, when Han Fei broke through to the immortal level, he didn't need his body to carry the great Tao. Therefore, this disadvantage didn't exist. However, if he had a chance to let Zhang Daqian also advance to the immortal level, not to mention whether he could fuse with the 2 of them, he would have at least 2 immortal level avatars. As for how to do it, it was relatively simple. Han Song, who was still standing on the return ruins, immediately went down and entered the battlefield next to Han Fei, covering for Han Fei's original body. After eldest senior brother retreated, he didn't go far. He was also fighting fiercely on the battlefield next to Han Fei. Han Fei shouted, "Everyone, help me!" While fighting the demon god, Han Fei turned his bones into a fishing pole, broke through time and began to fish. Huh? Why did you take out a fishing pole at this time? Swish. An arrow shot over. The heat of the arrow made the battlefield boil. Han Fei immediately shouted, "Eldest senior brother." In the next moment, eldest senior brother swept a void over the immortal demon god. Naturally didn't care. How could a void shake him? He crushed half of the Star River with a backhand slap, and the void shattered. However, after the void power shattered, it enveloped the immortal demon god like haunting ghosts. The demon god's face gradually became blurred. He seemed to be anyone with countless faces and forms. Yes, this was eldest senior brother's divine image. Eldest senior brother had no heart and had mastered the Tao of all living beings. Now that he had stepped into the immortal level, he could also give others this power. However, the power of the Tao of all living beings was generally used to help others comprehend the myriad forms of life. Now, it was used on this immortal demon god only to match the strange great Tao runes on the surface of his body and give him emotions. Sure enough, even the immortal demon god was a little stunned. Bang! The arrow exploded, and behind Han Fei, the time river appeared. A figure walked out of the time river. It was Zhang Daqian. On the city wall of the return ruins, everyone was puzzled. They couldn't help but look back at Zhang Daqian, who had just entered the Dominator realm, wondering what he meant. In the next moment, Zhang Daqian turned into his original body, an undying demon octopus, but he was very small and directly stuck onto Han Fei's original body. Han Fei roared, "Son of AB***, trash, trash, beast, come on. Hit me." The immortal demon god seemed to be infuriated. Some of his emotions were magnified infinitely. Seeing Han Fei's provocation, he was furious and punched at Han Fei with destructive power. However, this time, Han Fei didn't fight back or dodge at all. Bang! Han Fei was sent flying, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Behind Han Fei, Zhang Daqian exploded and was crushed. At the same time, on the city wall of the return ruins, Zhang Daqian's original body also exploded. This scene stunned everyone. On the battlefield, Hanfei was abnormally excited. It was effective and feasible. He felt boundless anger that could help Zhang Daqian undergo nirvana. Hanfei didn't stop, but attacked again, vomiting blood. Trash, haven't you eaten? You don't even have the strength to hit me. Trash, look at your branded body. You don't look like a human or a ghost. Even the stinky fish in the quagmire look more beautiful than you. ****, did you jump out of a stone? Do you want to acknowledge me as your father? Hanfei kept trash-talking, provoking the immortal demon god while taking him to the most remote battlefield, closest to the return ruins. On the city wall, the primordial Kylan said, "Is he crazy? Is he suddenly out of his mind?" The corners of Songtian's mouth twitched. "Junior brother, you're embarrassing me." However, while everyone looked at each other in bewilderment, infinite energy surged from the city wall. Zhang Daqian was recovering, and his flesh, blood, and soul were returning. At the same time, his strength was soaring. Someone's eyes lit up. He's undergoing nirvana. Hanfei's clone walks the path of nirvana, but his way of nirvana is a little special. Everyone could clearly feel that just now. Zhang Daqian only had 6 or 7 pieces of Star River origin. But at this moment, it had soared to 13 pieces of Star River origin. The rapid rise in power stunned everyone. Well, after the nirvana, his strength doubled? Everyone was speechless. Back then, they had to struggle in the Dominator realm for 1,000,000 years, 10,000,000 years, or even 10,000 years to double their strength. But Hanfei's clone doubled his strength in just a moment, which made them a little jealous and scared. Chapter 3702, It turns out that I've been warring for 100,000 years. 4. No wonder he insisted on bringing a clone who had just entered the Dominator realm into the return ruins. The peerless sword cultivator's gaze was intimidating at this moment as he said indifferently, "He's fishing again." ****CK. The primordial Kylan cursed, "Really? He can do this again?" A moment later. With a bang, on the city wall of the return ruins, Zhang Daqian's clone exploded again, which almost made everyone's eyes pop out. When Zhang Daqian's strength soared to 26 pieces of Star River source power, many people couldn't help but breathe heavily. Even the eyelids of Songtian were twitching crazily. Someone said with difficulty, he's fishing again." Zhang Daqian's growth speed had really subverted their worldview. They had never realized that the soaring of strength could be so simple. Only Hanfei knew that this Tao of Nirvana was really difficult. Otherwise, Zhang Daqian wouldn't have just barely become a dominator when they came to the path of no return. However, this also confirmed one thing, which was that in the later stages, under certain conditions, all cultivation paths would eventually achieve a leap in strength. After Zhang Daqian exploded for the 3rd time, the nirvana this time took several days to finish. And when Zhang Daqian underwent another nirvana, his strength was already at the peak of the Dominator realm. The primordial Kylan said, "This is too unfair. How can there be such a path in the chaotic Star Sea? It's simply ridiculous." On the city wall, an immortal giant beast said, "It's indeed a little ridiculous, but it's still acceptable. In our origin energy Star Sea, giant beasts run rampant. There are indeed many Taos of Nirvana. However, it's not as exaggerated as his ability to undergo Nirvana in a row." Someone also said, "He doesn't fish anymore. Although his avatar can undergo Nirvana to the peak of the Dominator realm, it's still too difficult for him." To reach the immortal level. Even with the insights of his original body, he still needs to carry the original myriad daos. This can't be finished in a day. If he undergoes nirvana directly, it's unlikely to succeed. When Zhang Daqian underwent the 8th nirvana, Han Fei felt a bottleneck. Just like Han Song, even if Zhang Daqian could carry all his insights, it would take time to polish them. At this moment, a voice came back from the frontmost battlefield. I didn't expect an interesting kid like you to appear in the chaotic star sea. Han Fei looked at it from a distance. It was a burly old man. He was called an old man because his beard and hair were all white, but his body was as sturdy as a wild beast. Han Fei saw that he was fighting 100 immortal demon gods alone and was entangled. It seemed that those immortal demon gods didn't dare to let him go. This person's control of the immortal level had reached the peak. Eldest senior brother said via voice transmission, "That's the first supreme." The first supreme? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. In the history of the chaotic star sea, he was a legendary existence who was invincible in the chaotic era. He was the first to embark on the path of no return. In addition, someone was looking at him from a distance. Han Fei looked back and found him very familiar. It turned out to be Li Daoyi. He was fighting in front, surrounded by more than 40 immortal demon gods. Li Daoyi said, "There are also immortals stronger than other immortals. Their strength lies in their mastery of origin, like a melody, with all kinds of combinations. This is the meaning of continuous battles." Han Fei smiled. Fight. Han Fei didn't return to the return ruins, and only Zhang Daqian stayed on the city wall. Here, what he didn't lack the least was the origin Dao. With the comprehension of his original body as the premise, it was only a matter of time for Zhang Daqian to break through to the immortal level. Han Fei wasn't worried. Therefore, he and Han Song didn't return. In this battle, time seemed to be meaningless. The void was pierced through, and star rivers seemed to collapse one after another, but they seemed to be able to regenerate infinitely. The dreamlike battlefield seemed endless. At first, Han Fei could only barely withstand the attacks of 20 immortal demon gods, but he was often injured. However, as long as he couldn't be killed, he would always become braver and more familiar with fighting. After an unknown period of time, the strong masters on the city wall of the return ruins joined the battlefield one after another. Some people also retreated to the city wall of the return ruins. Only one person had been sitting cross-legged and comprehending. Han Fei was repeatedly disassembling and combining the usage of various original Dao techniques. He kept experimenting, adjusting, and fighting. Over time, he had forgotten the time. On this day, he was surrounded by more than 60 immortal demon gods. Their killing techniques filled the sky, causing the sun and moon to dim and the sky to dim. On countless battlefields, Han Fei and their qi and blood were left. On this day, Han Fei's heart suddenly trembled, and he was pulled back to the focused state of deducing the Dao technique. This was because on this day, Zhang Daqian made a breakthrough. Buzz. Han Fei began to retreat and return, only to find that a new group of people had already replaced the previous ones on the city wall of the return ruins. Among them, there were 43 people, including Li Daoyi and eldest senior brother. As soon as Han Fei returned, he saw these people looking at him with complicated gazes. Han Fei raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Li Daoyi said leisurely, "Do you know how long you've been fighting?" He didn't need to be told how long he had been fighting. Han Fei and Zhang Daqian's information had always been synchronized, so he came back to his senses after a brief stun. He couldn't help but look back at the battlefield that was still fighting. It turns out that I have been fighting for 100,000 years. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh and feel a little sad. 100,000 years was such a long wait. Shiman Linglan didn't appear in the return ruins, which meant that she hadn't become an immortal. This was actually excusable. Although Zhang Daqian became a peak level dominator very quickly, Zhang Daqian was Han Fei's avatar, and Han Fei was already an immortal level powerhouse with synchronized comprehension. Coupled with the special environment of the return ruins and the special nature of the Tao of Nirvana, he could become a peak-level dominator in a short period of time. It took Zhang Daqian 100,000 years to become an immortal. Therefore, even in the Sea of Great Taos, a mere 100,000 years was not enough for ordinary people to cross to the peak of the Dominator realm. Otherwise, how many 100,000 years could there be in an era? How many strong masters would be born? Although he had forgotten time, these 100,000 years had passed, bit by bit. He could feel nothing, but someone was waiting, suffering, and looking forward to his return. Therefore, Han Fei knew that it was time to fuse with Han Song and Zhang Daqian. Han Fei looked in the direction of the battlefield. After a moment of silence, he finally said slowly, "It's time for all things three to be used." Hearing this, everyone perked up. Over the years, everyone in the return ruins was looking forward to it. This was because no one had walked Han Fei's path before. They were waiting for Zhang Daqian to become an immortal. And on this day, they finally got what they wanted. Everyone's hearts were ignited with unprecedented hope. Once this path was feasible and Han Fei used this method to reach the immortal level, there would be countless followers of Han Fei. Besides, after everyone's discussion and speculation, they felt that the probability of Han Fei succeeding was not low. This was because energy was conserved after all. It was impossible for infinite energy to be born for no reason. If Han Fei's three bodies were combined, it was impossible for his body in the immortal level not to change. If it changed, it would definitely change. What no one could guess was how it would change. Would all the power gather into one body and be suppressed but not used for a breakthrough? All of this required a precursor to try and walk. Buzz. On the city wall of the return ruins, 43 people rose one after another. On the battlefield, some people looked at Han Fei frequently. When the immortal powerhouses on the battlefield saw that everyone on the city wall had already stood up, they already had an epiphany and began to approach each other. They were already prepared to guard Han Fei's breakthrough. "Little junior brother, if you want to start, I'll guard you." Eldest senior brother stood up. Today's eldest senior brother was clearly different. He embarked on his own path, pursued his own Tao, and searched for his own heart. All of this gradually made eldest senior brother become warm and intimate. Li Daoi also said, "I already know of your existence. I think you can understand my past. It's a pity that we haven't met in the chaotic Star Sea. If you want to fight today, I'll accompany you to the end of the Sea of Stars and the beginning of the void." Someone said, "Fellow Taoist Han Fei, since we're all in the return ruins, we're like family. Don't mind success or failure. Don't worry. Kill to your Hearts, content until even the 3,000 demon gods tremble. Someone laughed. My blood is already boiling. Han Fei looked back at everyone present and smiled. Then, he looked in the direction of the door of the Return Ruins Palace and said softly, "Wait for me to return. Kill." In the next moment, Han Fei's temperament changed, and monstrous killing intent enveloped the battlefield. Bang! When Han Fei stepped out of the city wall, his foot was like a lotus blooming in the void, bursting out with infinite halos of laws. Bam! 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 Han Fei walked on the road. The divine vine of the demon purification pot appeared between his eyebrows, but Han Fei only extended 2 fingers. With a crack, he picked a leaf from the vine. The leaf began to turn into a knife in Han Fei's hand, blooming with dazzling light, illuminating the sky, illuminating the void, illuminating the darkness, and igniting the invincible fire of will in Han Fei. Han Fei didn't stop. He walked in the void, moved forward in the darkness, and began the strongest impact in his life on the dreamy battlefield. Han Song was on the left, and Zhang Daqian was on the right. The 3 of them emitted an invincible will, as if they had become one, turning into a sharp knife that broke into the battlefield and attacked the altar. Behind Han Fei, on the city wall of the Return Ruins, the 43 people, whether they had recovered or not, were all following him. On the battlefield, bloody figures rushed out of the dreamy shattered battlefield one after another, clearing the way for Han Fei. Han Fei's speed was getting faster and faster. The 3 bodies reflected each other, and a terrifying aura was spreading. The leaf in his hand vibrated with extremely sharp killing intent. Han Fei's blood flowed out of his fingertips and stained the leaf, instantly covering his entire body with golden light. Kill. Among the 3,000 demon gods, some of the immortal demon gods tried to stop Han Fei, but most of them were sent flying by other immortals in front of Han Fei before they could reach him. Occasionally, an immortal demon god would pass the path opener, but when they touched Han Fei's knife light, they were also sent flying. Originally, Han Fei could already shake 60 or 70 immortal demon gods alone. Although he couldn't kill them, he could shake them. Bang! 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 The immortal demon gods were shaken away by this shocking broadsword. The battlefield in front of them was torn apart by this broadsword, and the void was cut apart. At this moment, the 3,000 demon gods no longer attacked, because they knew that in the face of such a strong attack, such a charge, and such a chaotic battle method, they could only block. Immortal demon gods began to emit infinite light, illuminating each other and turning into a wall of demon gods. No one had ever crossed this wall. The first supreme, Li Daoi, and eldest senior brother couldn't. But at this moment, the first supreme, the powerhouse, who hadn't even met Han Fei once, but had led Han Fei's path of cultivation, roared, "Let me open the way for you." The first supreme turned into a boundless hand, blew up more than a dozen surrounding battlefields, and clenched a golden fist light. He even shattered an arm, condensed it into a fist, and punched out, bombarding the wall of gods and demons in front of Han Fei. Li Daoi and the primordial Kylin walked out together. The primordial Kylin roared, and divine light spewed out of its mouth, turning into a Kylin giant beast that galloped in the dark void. Wherever it passed, flames spread and burned the world. Li Daoi held a green vine and whipped it out, transforming it into a dragon snake in the void. The rumbling sound caused the worlds to tremble. The sky roared, and a sword burst out of his body, destroying the world. As the sword rose, it was like 1,000 soldiers. Junior brother, kill. Apart from the first supreme Enli Dowie, there were many people attacking. At first, the 3,000 demon gods were resisting them one by one, but later, they simply stopped blocking and built the wall of demon gods with all their strength, which was like a natural chasm, allowing them to attack as they pleased. They seemed to be certain that no one could cross this wall. Rumble! Rumble! Blinding brilliance shattered the void, cut through the darkness, and hit the demon god wall, bursting out with dazzling brilliance, illuminating the battlefield. The wall of gods and demons was shaking, trembling, sunken, and enduring the surging power. However, no matter how the wall of gods and demons changed, it was not broken in the end. It was still firm as if it couldn't be broken. At this moment, everyone turned around and looked at Han Fei. Han Fei seemed to come with the power of the heavens. The knife light cut through the wind and waves, rubbing endless great Tao runes in the void, shining brightly. Swish! At the same time, two scimitars suddenly appeared on both sides of Han Fei. They were the blades of hope, absorbing the hope of all the immortals here. At this moment, they were also burning. Some unprecedented pattern slowly appeared on the blades. They were immortal runes, which were somewhat similar to the runes on the immortal demon god. At this moment, in the hope of many immortals, the blade of hope evolved into an existence that could shake the immortal. It was also at the moment when the blade of hope made a breakthrough that Shimin Linglan, who was cultivating on the Return Ruins Island, suddenly opened her eyes, and then her eyes gradually lit up. She looked at the depths of the great Tao Sea, where boundless and magnificent power was blooming, reflected, and appeared above the great Tao Sea. The others also looked over. Someone exclaimed, "Look, something is appearing in the distant sky." Someone was shocked. That seems to be a battlefield, but it's too vague to see clearly. What a terrifying power. I've been on the Return Ruins Island for so long, but I've never seen such a blazing power. It makes me excited. In fact, in the chaotic star sea, the origin energy star sea, the mystic yellow star sea. As long as there was the path of no return, as long as someone was looking, they could see that outside that world, in the depths of the great Tao Sea, at an unknown source, a shadow was reflected in the sky, moving forward alone, fighting. Unfortunately, that was all they could see. Because they weren't there, they couldn't see clearly. Kill. Clank, clank, clank. At that moment, Han Fei collided with the wall of gods and demons. The terrifying explosion shook the sky and the earth, and the wall of gods, known as immortal and indestructible, sank deeply. Han Fei almost completely broke into the wall of gods and demons. The sharp knives formed by the cooperation of the three bodies seemed to be trying to pierce through an extremely tough film, looking as if they could pierce through it at any time. However, Han Fei didn't look good. Finally, it's still blocked? It seems that immortal power alone can't break through this so-called wall of gods and demons, no matter how strong it is. However, if he couldn't break through the wall of gods, he could only fight here forever, unable to go further, so he could never return. Roar. All things three, fuse. Han Fei's eyes were filled with madness. He had no choice. If he couldn't cross the wall, all that was left was eternal war. God knew how long it would take. Fight a great era, two great eras? Or, like the first supreme, fight many great eras? Instead of fighting for so long, he might as well die early. That way, he could still be reborn. What was the difference? Bang! Bang! His three bodies were fusing, Hanfei's body was expanding, and his bones were making squeaking sounds. His blood chi was whistling like a river, and his aura was like rolling lightning. As he breathed, the world trembled. After the three became one, the basic strength of his original body increased by at least 3 to 9 times. This was the most basic growth after the three bodies became one. Whether it was an increase of 3 or 9 times, the reason was the same. According to the law of conservation of energy, since the boundary of a mortal level had been fixed, the appearance of 3 times the power would inevitably cause some special and unknown changes. Buzz. For a moment, Hanfei seemed to have turned into some kind of Dharma idol, turning into an indomitable giant that bloomed with boundless chi and blood. However, his body was like a huge funnel, absorbing all the energy, all the great Taos, and all the light that bloomed here. Qi. Qi. Han Song and Zhang Daqian were gradually dissipating, but cracks kept appearing on Han Fei's original body. Someone was shocked. Not good. His original body has absorbed too much power and can't hold on. Someone was horrified. Damn it. Is this not enough? Dallas? What is? Dallas? Is he going to die? The primordial Kylan roared. He was unwilling. It wasn't easy for him to see some hope. Why couldn't the wall of gods and demons be broken? Why the Dallas realm couldn't be reached? At this moment, someone was shocked. Look, he's absorbing the origin great Tao from the palace of the return ruins, and even behind, where the great Tao Sea originally belonged, endless waves surged from behind the return ruins and crazily poured into Hanfei's body. Someone exclaimed, look, the great Tao runes on the bodies of the 3,000 demon gods are being absorbed. Someone frowned. Some kind of change must have happened, but this change is beyond Hanfei's tolerance. Damn it, he's only one step away from reaching the Dallas level. Hanfei was also struggling. He was trying to suppress the power in his body. And infinite seals were appearing around him, trying to suppress this rapidly expanding power. His body couldn't bear it anymore. Too many Taos, too many laws, exceeded the boundary, but there was nowhere to spread them, making his original body swell and about to explode. Hanfei was also very anxious. The time given to him to think was too short. Why was this fusion so exaggerated that even the great Tao Sea was absorbed by him? Infinite Tao techniques seemed to be forcibly pouring into his body. Taoist realm? That's really a suitable name. Hanfei was like a river, but the power of his breakthrough was like the sea. The sea poured into the river, but the river was not allowed to expand. Wasn't there no way out? Endless primordial Tao techniques were pouring in. Hanfei knew that if he didn't bend now, his body would explode in the end. Tao originates from existence, and existence arises from non-existence. Without Tao, there is no way, no way, no way. Hanfei roared. How could he go if there was no way out? He roared, with a Tao technique, this path won't work. He was warning others, because Hanfei had a feeling that in the next moment he might explode and bloom into a brilliant mass of mist in the void. However, as soon as he said this reminder, Hanfei suddenly understood something. With a Tao technique, the path couldn't be taken. He immediately realized that the Tao technique was a shackle, a restraint. No matter how infinite the origin great Tao poured in, it was actually just binding layers of shackles on him. Only by abandoning it, only by transcending, pouring out his so-called origin, great Daos, and pouring out himself, could there be a chance of a turn for the better. If there was no path, he had to transcend the restrictions of the Tao and laws. If there was no path, it was all a path. Since he had chosen this path, even if he was about to die, he had to see the scenery above the immortal level. At this moment, Han Fei's body couldn't bear the burden anymore and had expanded to its limit. He roared, "Eldest senior brother, I want to see all living beings." Han Fei wanted to bet everything. He still had a chance to undergo nirvana. He had fused his two other bodies, but he only used the great Tao of nirvana 8 times. Upon hearing this, eldest senior brother's body trembled, and his voice rumbled, sweeping across the battlefield. "Okay, hold on. Buzz." At that moment, eldest senior brother didn't hesitate. He took a step ahead of Han Fei and suddenly bloomed, cracked, turned into countless voids, turned into a surging void wave, and suddenly slapped the god-fiend wall. At that moment, the 3,000 demon gods were all angry and roared. It was like an ancient demonic sound that penetrated the myriad worlds and swept across the past, present, and future, murderous and irritable. Rumble. The wall of gods and demons began to emit infinite light, and those who opened the way for Han Fei were all forced back. At the same time, Han Fei's body exploded like a dam bursting. The origin. Great Tao was pouring out, and infinite energy was collapsing. Soaring chi and blood swept across all the void visible to the naked eye. Rumble. The power of the explosion shook everyone back and also shattered the wall of gods and demons. However, none of the 3,000 demon gods died. They were only shaken back. On the return ruins side, except for eldest senior brother and Han Fei, almost everyone suffered a backlash. Half of the immortals were coughing blood, and their bodies had varying degrees of injuries. At this moment, although there were endless origin great Daos on the battlefield, these great Daos were all chaotic and could no longer be used. Finally, the attempt to reach the altar this time was over. The wall of gods and demons collapsed, but a chasm appeared between the 3,000 demon gods and the strong masters of the 7 worlds. It was a sea of light, a sea of chi and blood, a sea of great Daos that separated the two sides. This chasm was insurmountable. Everyone looked at the sea solemnly with mournful expressions. The primordial Kylan was crying and roaring, still not working? Even if he fused 3 immortals, he still perished in the end? A giant beast creature shed tears. I'm unwilling. Songtian looked solemn and furious. He wanted to ask why. What did the supreme powerhouse of the chaos leave behind? What was the last step they were short of? Even the first supreme was trembling slightly and roaring, the one from the immortal martial world, "I know you are still alive, but how long are you going to stop us? What do you want us to do?" Everyone was unwilling and angry. They had already done their best. They no longer pursued self-strength. They only wanted to break the seal of the 3,000 demon gods and see the altar and the outside of the return ruins. They just wanted an explanation. Unfortunately, anger was just anger. No matter how angry they were, the 3,000 demon gods wouldn't let them go. Even if they weren't puppets, they were better than puppets. Without a transcendent power piercing through them, the return ruins would forever become a battlefield. 1 year. 2 years. Time passed quickly. 100 years passed. Hanfei died, and eldest senior brother didn't return. The void dissipated. Perhaps he was sleeping or lost, and needed to wait for him to revive. In the darkness, Hanfei's will came back to his senses. Have I died? No, not yet. Is this? Did I transform into the world? No, I can't feel the world, but it seems that I can transform into all things and the world. The world is born with me, and all things are one with me? Is this the Taoless realm? Have I transcended Tao and law? On the city wall of the return ruins, 334 people were sitting cross-legged, researching and studying. Someone sighed. 100 years have passed since Hanfei's death. I didn't expect this to be the easiest 100 years since I came to the return ruins. I don't need to fight. I actually feel a little bored. Someone sighed. The chasm is still there, but the power is slowly dissipating. I'm afraid in a few 100 years, all the battlefields will return. I'm afraid we will continue to fight. Someone shook his head slightly. To be honest, I don't want to fight anymore. Even a person who had fused 3 immortals has been killed. We've already tried the method we should try. What else do you think? Alas. Amidst the exclamations, the primordial Kylan suddenly widened its eyes and looked at the chasm that was full of destructive power. I don't know if I'm seeing things. Look, there seem to be 2 lights in the chasm. Huh? Someone was refreshed and stood up. Huh? Really? Immediately, everyone stood up with a look of disbelief. In fact, many of them felt that even void had perished. In order for Hanfei to see all living beings and contaminate the 3,000 demon gods, he sacrificed himself. However, at this moment, they seemed to see hope. Is it Void? Is he still alive? Void is a little special. Perhaps he is really just dormant and reviving at this moment. The First Supreme's eyes were sharp. The power in the chasm is rapidly decreasing, as if it is being swallowed. Someone was refreshed. Did Hanfei's death help Void succeed? Wait, let's wait and see. Suddenly, a murmur sounded in everyone's ears, or rather, in the entire void. The world coexists with me, and all things are one with me. To reach the Taoless realm, one should transcend the boundary of Tao and law. Buzz. At that moment, the void was trembling. All the Taos and laws here were melting and collapsing. Endless energy was surging towards the chasm. The 2 scimitars gradually took shape in the chasm. Song Tian's eyelids twitched crazily. Such terrifying energy is gathering. It's Hanfei. He's undergoing nirvana. Roar. The primordial Kylan roared at the sky. Really? He's still alive? Someone exclaimed, his body trembling slightly. Can he survive? The First Supreme clenched his fists. You should ask, can he succeed? Everyone saw billions of runes appear, but they didn't look like great Tao runes, but more like the runes on the bodies of the 3,000 demon gods. They seemed to exceed the scope of great Tao runes. And a blurry figure finally appeared in the chasm. His body was bathed in the flames of nirvana, gathering infinite energy. Even his great Tao and laws couldn't escape and were all swallowed. They were swallowed, not fused. At that moment, the blurry figure on the distant altar seemed to finally open his eyes. No one could see who he was. He was too dazzling and blurry. However, in the chasm, the figure had already raised his foot. Every time he took a step, he left a scorching and terrifying footprint. Then, the footprint faded in the void and burned up. It's Han Fei. That person is Han Fei. Finally, when that person stepped out of the chasm, everyone saw his appearance clearly. The primordial Kylan was roaring, and Li Daoi put on a smile. The others were also extremely nervous, feeling even more nervous than when they walked to the altar themselves. Han Fei, has he transcended? Han Fei had already made it very clear that to reach the Taoist realm, one had to transcend the boundary of Tao and law. Although no one knew how to transcend, it didn't stop them from wanting to see Han Fei transcend. The chasm was gradually dissipating, turning into a massive amount of energy that was taken away by Han Fei and absorbed into his body. Beside him, too, blades of hope were floating. In front of him, the 3,000 demon gods mechanically formed the demon god wall. However, just as everyone was in despair, wondering why this thing was still coming, Han Fei raised his hand, and the blade of hope crossed and revolved. There were no great Tao runes, no earth-shattering chaos, only the flames of will burning fiercely, like eternal flames blooming, illuminating the void and illuminating the heavens. Bang! Han Fei's power was rising, and his fighting intent filled the countless battlefields. This blow shook the wall of gods and demons. In the resonance of the heavens and the earth, in the interweaving of light and darkness, the wall of gods and demons was broken, pierced, and cracked. So strong? Han Fei realized his strength. He had transcended the great Tao and could restore order and rewrite rules. With a thought, he could make all living beings die or live. Han Fei was not in a hurry to walk into the gap. Instead, he looked back. He saw the void that dispersed in this endless battlefield. He saw the immortals who had once tried to make a breakthrough here, but withered. Their wills lingered in the heavenly battlefield and dispersed here. They had never dissipated, but they had completely fallen asleep. Buzz. As Han Fei waved his hand, the endless void began to gather, and the dispersing will began to return. Endless energy gathered, and eldest senior brother's body was instantly reconstructed. At the same time, here, 203 flames of will appeared in the battlefield and began to burn, blooming with divine light. They were the immortals who had died in the past. Those old friends are recovering. They are returning. This time, there was no sound on the city wall of the ultimate. The indomitable immortals were sobbing. The primordial Kylan and the giant beast were even crying with tears in their eyes. Finally, a Taoist powerhouse has appeared. Someone said this, which contained thousands of emotions and sighs. In the next moment, shocking cheers and roars erupted on the city wall. Roar. Han Fei, human Han Fei. Woof. In everyone's eyes, this was not a simple breakthrough. This was a path that they had searched for countless eras, but had never reached. This path was too difficult and arduous. How could they not be excited? Under everyone's excited shouts and eager gazes, Han Fei crossed the wall of gods and devils, leaving a shallow mark in the void. Finally, he stepped on the altar. This was an ancient altar that had experienced the vicissitudes of life. The steps were engraved with the models of time. It must have experienced many tribulations, so it left a mark representing blood and fire. Han Fei's eyes had been on the figure. It was a man who was so skinny that he was only skin and bones. The wrinkles on his face were curled up, and he was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the altar. Han Fei couldn't sense the other party's strength, which could only mean one thing. The other party was also in the Dallas realm, the same realm as him. Chaos? Han Fei's mind flashed to the dome painting he saw in the Palace of the Return. Ruins. The ominous was dismembered, and the primordial, the mystic yellow, the heavenly spirit and the origin energy powerhouses had all perished. There were only the immortal martial and the chaos powerhouses left. This person was clearly not the woman from the immortal martial world, so it could only be chaos. However, what he couldn't understand was why this person set up 3,000 demon gods to guard this place and block everyone's way. At this moment, this person had already opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his wrinkled face. Seeing the other party's eyes, Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He understood. Han Fei turned around, pointed at the city wall of the Return ruins, and said, "With difficulty, this is the most difficult trial I've ever experienced in my life, and in their lives. I really didn't expect this to be a trial." Cough, cough. Perhaps because he hadn't spoken for too long, the Chaos Supreme Powerhouse coughed. After he calmed down, he slowly said, "I know this is cruel. You have persisted for a long time, fought for a long time, and were very tired and bitter. However, I have to do this. Because we need a person to end the ominous." And the ominous? Han Fei couldn't help frowning. Indeed, the people from the immortal martial world dismembered the ominous and then sealed it, but they didn't really kill it. However, Han Fei was a little surprised. According to the records in the Return ruins, the ominous, or not just ominous, the other 6 substances, are all indestructible. If you can't end them, how can I? The chaotic powerhouse said with difficulty, "I'll take you to see someone first." Buzz. The altar was spinning and the void was disappearing. Han Fei saw an unknown passage. Without needing him to step in, this chaotic powerhouse, and the altar disappeared from the land of the ultimate. This scene shocked countless people in the Return ruins. They didn't see Han Fei move. Why did he disappear? Unfortunately, Han Fei didn't return, and no one could tell them the answer. Swish. A green light appeared in front of Han Fei's eyes. When he completely saw the world in front of him, he discovered that it was a paradise-like place. There were towering and magnificent mountains, endless rivers, divine phoenixes, and azure dragons surging among Yunduo, and towering spiritual plants everywhere. Where Han Fei was a world tree. It didn't seem much different from the world tree in the chaotic Star Sea. Beside the river, a woman in gauze was fishing. The woman seemed to realize something and stood up. As she stood up, rays of light flowed from her gauze dress, making her look like a fairy. When the woman turned around, Han Fei's pupils were constricted. This was the woman who gave him the path of Dallasness. However, it was completely different from the valiant and heroic image he saw last time. At this moment, she had changed into beautiful clothes and looked stunning gorgeous. Although Han Fei was no longer enchanted by beauty, he couldn't help but be amazed. The woman smiled, her red lips parted slightly, and her white teeth were like porcelain. "You're finally here. We've been waiting for you for a long time." Han Fei came back to himself and cupped his hands. "Wait for me? Senior, do you know that I can get here?" The woman shook her head slightly. "I don't know, but you are the first to come." Han Fei looked around. "Where is this?" With a smile, the woman took a small step forward and came to the altar. She looked at Han Fei and said, "This is the immortal martial star C. I am the immortal martial." Han Fei frowned slightly. "What about the indestructible matter?" The woman shook her head. "It's just a name. We're named after a mysterious substance each." Han Fei asked, "Seniors, what do you mean by and the ominous?" Cough, cough. Chaos slowly said, "The ominous has betrayed us. We need you to replace the ominous in the future." Huh? Replace the ominous? Han Fei's pupils were constricted slightly. "What do you mean?" "The ominous breeds evil and swallows negative things. What does it mean to replace the ominous?" Han Fei was already prepared for battle. Although these two people were strong masters, for some reason they didn't seem to be able to beat him. The immortal marshal smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. There's no good or bad about the birth of mysterious matter. If it's used for a good purpose, it's good, and if it's an evil one, it's evil." Do you know why you had never heard of the existence of the immortal marshal? Without waiting for Han Fei to speak, immortal marshal said, "Because the immortal martial matter has been swallowed and refined by me. It's the only complete and undamaged one at present. Correspondingly, the seven of us transcended by swallowing and refining a mysterious matter. No one can copy our transcendence. We don't know how to go from immortal to the transcendence realm. And you are the only one who didn't rely on the mysterious matter to forcibly transcend. Therefore, you are stronger than us." Han Fei's heart stirred. That worked? He had directly reached the transcendence realm. That was great. As for being stronger than them, Han Fei had already figured it out, but this was stronger not in terms of strength, but because he seemed to only have more power to change rules than them. And the power of the immortal martial and the chaos seemed to be affected by that mysterious substance, so it was slightly lacking. However, Han Fei was still puzzled. "Then what do you mean by having me replace the ominous?" Immortal martial said, "The ominous has rebelled. Because we have already swallowed the mysterious matter, we can't devour and refine the ominous. However, you can. You walked to the transcendence realm on your own. Only when you reach the transcendence realm can you forcibly strip away the control of the current ominous over the mysterious matter. As for you, even if you swallow and refine the ominous, you are still you. The only change is that you completely control the ominous, just like I completely control the immortal martial." Chaos also said, "Besides, if our guess is correct, not only can you control the ominous, but you won't be restrained by the mysterious matter of the ominous. You can even suppress it. Since you've transcended with your own strength, in essence, you are no weaker than those mysterious matters. Therefore, in your domain, you have the power to specify rules." Han Fei's heart trembled. He had figured out a lot of things. "So, you used the ominous severed limbs as bait to fish us, guiding us to embark on the path of no return, step into the return ruins, and achieve transcendence from the trial with the 3,000 demon gods?" Immortal martial nodded and then looked at the chaos. "Chaos can actually recover long ago as long as he retracts his great Tao Si. But he didn't. This is because the primordial, mystic yellow, heavenly spirit, and origin energy haven't been born and haven't transcended yet. Therefore, this fishing had to continue." Han Fei asked, "So, should I subdue the ominous and devour it now?" Immortal martial shook her head slightly. "It's not the time yet. The Primordial, mystic yellow, heavenly spirit, and origin energy still need the currently evil ominous. Only when the evil is still there can these seas of stars continue to resist. Only in this struggle can a real powerhouse be born. Just like you now. Chaos said, however, you have already controlled the two severed limbs of the ominous. You can devour and refine some of the ominous first. In this way, even if the other worlds are defeated and the remaining bodies of the ominous gather again, it will never be able to return to its true peak. Hanfei was silent for a moment. So, you want me to join you in the fishing? Of you too? Yes. The two of them spoke at the same time. This time, they didn't refute. Hanfei said leisurely, the price of this fishing is the life and death of countless creatures. Many people survive the sea of stars, but they can't survive the path of no return. They survive the path of no return, but they can't survive the return ruins. They have been fighting for too long. After a moment of silence, Immortal Marshal said, we know, but there's nothing we can do. This path is against the heavens in the first place. Along the way, there are piles of bones and endless love and hatred. We all want to let it go, but you've read the records of the return ruins. You should know that in the endless void, there is an ultimate dark creature waiting for us. We are also on the way. We are also fighting. If we retreat, the endless creatures in the seven worlds won't even have a chance to fight or survive. At this moment, Chaos also said, Hanfei, we've already failed once. That ominous rebellion destroyed all our worlds. Our families, loved ones, and people were all annihilated in that destruction. Therefore, we can't retreat. Although the test we set up is extremely difficult, we can't stop. Cough. Cough. Chaos coughed and laughed. Fortunately, you succeeded. Perhaps your path is difficult to copy, but someone will succeed, right? Hanfei was silent for a long time before saying, I have a condition. Immortal Marshal nodded. What is it? Hanfei said, since it's a trial, it's a trial. I want to open the passage to the return ruins, as well as the return path of the path of no return. Those who are willing to stay can continue the trial. Those who aren't can return on their own without being restricted. Return freedom to them. After a long silence, Immortal Marshal said, okay, but even if they return, the immortals can't directly interfere in the war in their respective seas of stars. Otherwise, the existence of the evil ominous will be meaningless. Okay. Refining the ominous was a small matter. For the current Hanfei, it wouldn't take long. Besides, he might not really devour and refine the ominous himself. Judging from Immortal Marshal and Chaos, they were definitely weaker than him in some aspects. These 7 mysterious substances might be extremely powerful, but they might have had their own rules long ago. And he had no rules to restrain him now. If the Emperor Sparrow could rise, he might be a better choice. He said, how long before the ultimate dark creature spread here? The Immortal Marshal said, perhaps, as fast as dozens of eras, or as slow as thousands. If you're willing to watch, I can accompany you. No need. Hanfei smiled. Dozens of eras. How long it is? I'm a little tempted to eat meat. Then, Hanfei took out the delicious food that Lu Renquan gave him before he left. He picked a few skewers of meat and stuffed one into the Immortal Marshal and Chaos hands each. The two of them? Crunch. While chewing, Han Fei said with a smile, "There's still a long time." "Why? Don't you consider enjoying life in the mortal world? Do you remember when the last carefree slumber was? Why do I have to consider what will happen dozens of years later? Is that so?" Immortal Marshal suddenly smiled slyly. "If you say so, then I don't have to put on airs. It's very tiring to pretend to be something. Chaos, stop pretending. Ha ha ha." On the altar, Chaos, who was sitting cross-legged, also got up. His dry, thin, and wrinkled face was actually recovering. Gradually, Chaos turned into an old man. Han Fei's eyes widened, and the skewers in his hand fell to the ground. F***ck, teacher? Han Fei couldn't have felt worse. He had experienced everything. What else could make him so stunned and shocked? But he never expected that someone would be so foxy. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. "But Song Tian said you died?" The prophet chuckled. "Oh, it's just a clone. If I don't stimulate him, how can he become immortal so quickly?" Han Fei really wanted to roll his eyes at the prophet. How many eras had this person been deceiving people? Han Fei gnashed his teeth. "Old man, you like acting so much. It's a pity that you don't replace the ominous." The prophet smiled. "Unfortunately, I can't do it." Han Fei said impatiently, "Keep acting. I'll wait for the day you're exposed." Another moment later. In the return ruins, the altar reappeared, and Han Fei's appearance caused a clamor on the city wall of the return ruins. The revived immortals were still stunned. Was this the guy who had stepped above the immortal level? It was this person who revived them. Han Fei walked back from the altar. None of the 3,000 demon gods moved, and no one stopped him. Han Fei raised his hand, and a dazzling light, like a spear that poured into the sky, pierced through the return ruins, past the return ruins island, penetrated the sea of great Daos, and blasted out a brilliant grand path. Boom, boom, boom. Han Fei attacked 6 times in a row, creating 6 passages. Everyone was a little stunned, and the first supreme asked, "Han Fei, what's the meaning of this?" Han Fei said leisurely, "Everyone, I've just rewritten the rules. These 6 passages lead to the chaotic star sea, the primordial star sea, the mystic yellow star sea, the heavenly spirit star sea, the origin energy star sea, and the immortal martial star sea respectively. From today on, you can return to the return ruins at any time, or you can enter other seas of stars at will. From here. Of course, there is a premise that no immortal can participate in any world's war and can't reveal his immortal realm." Everyone was stunned. Can we return?" For a moment, most of the immortals here were confused. After fighting for so long, if they returned, what was the point of them fighting all the way? Song Tian shouted, "Junior brother, what did you experience? Where did the altar take you?" The primordial Kylan said, "Boy, don't try to catch our appetite." Han Fei grinned. "I can't tell you. I can only tell you that the 3,000 demon gods are just a trial. If you beat them, you will know everything. If you can't, fight them slowly, or go back to enjoy the rest of your life and travel the 6 worlds. Come back to fight when you want to. Resume the trial." A trial? So this is AF** King trial? Damn it, which B** starred created this trial? If you have the guts, come out. Even if I can't beat you, even if I lose my life, I will scold you. Swish. Han Fei stepped into the city wall of the return ruins and looked at eldest senior brother with a smile. Eldest senior brother, I'll go back first. They're waiting for me. Eldest senior brother nodded calmly, not surprised or surprised. On the side, the primordial Kylan roared, Boyd, why aren't you surprised at all? Han Fei is your little junior brother. Why don't you catch him and ask him? Eldest senior brother looked at the primordial Kylan calmly. I'm not surprised, because I don't have a heart. As for this trial, if little junior brother doesn't say it, it's because he can't say it. Why should I ask? Ah. The primordial Kylan rolled on the ground. I'm so angry. I'm so angry. On the Return Ruins Island, Shiman Linglan and a group of peak-level dominators were looking up. Suddenly, 6 brilliant great daos penetrated through the water vapor clouds in the distance and punched 6 holes in the Return Ruins Island. What is this? It's like a passage. I wonder where it leads? What happened in the Return Ruins? Look, someone is coming back. On the Return Ruins Island, someone roared, pointing at the mist with madness in his eyes. As for Shiman Linglan, tears fell from the corners of her eyes. She was smiling, crying, aggrieved, and happy. In the next moment, a familiar figure had already arrived in front of her. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Han Fei raised his hand and gently wiped the tears on Shiman Linglan's face. Let's go home. 100,000 years passed in the chaotic Star Sea. Without the ominous, countless new races were born, and all races rose quickly, with unprecedented momentum. Perhaps there was a new war here, but that had nothing to do with the ominous. The primordial Star Sea was still fighting, but it had nothing to do with the ordinary people in the chaotic Star Sea. Only real strong masters would go to the primordial Star Sea, through the passage between the two worlds. To be precise, it was another group of people's conquest journey. Those who were guarding the chaotic Star Sea were still guarding it. The path of no return. The death god pulled a star over, which was planted with all kinds of demon plants, filling the star with vitality. On this day, he was facing the direction of the path of no return, with a tea table in front of him, sipping tea. Clatter. The ethereal flute sound rippled here, melodious and cleansing. Occasionally, it was cheerful, but most of it was sad. When it was cheerful, it was like the afterglow of the setting sun, pouring on the body, warm and moving. When it was sad, it was like snowflakes floating in the void, bone-chilling. The heavenly music seemed to be describing a beautiful and touching dream. Little girl, it's been 100,000 years. Although you've become a dominator, 3 pieces of Star River source power are still too weak. Just listening to the sound of the tidal wave on the path of no return can help you upgrade to 9 pieces of Star River source power at most. There won't be any more. How can you go to the path of no return to find him? The death god was holding a teacup and speaking. At the highest point of this star, on a lone peak, Jiuying Ling was hugging the flute, and the creation Boyd's spiritual drum was quietly floating beside her. Jiuying Ling was raising her head and looking in the direction of no return. Her expression was quiet, neither happy nor sad. She said indifferently, I said that one day, I will stand by his side. No matter how long this day lasts, no matter how difficult this path is, if one day I can't improve anymore, I will embark on this path, even if the price is death. The death god shook his head slightly. Why are you so persistent? Even if you die, I'm afraid he won't know. Look at Xiao Shaochan. She used Han Fei's connections to visit the 3 temples, seeking ultimate techniques and embarking on a new path. The last time she came to me, it should be 30,000 years ago, when she had already mastered 18 pieces of Star River source power. Why don't you take me as your master? Jiao Yinling shook her head. Senior, the 10 directions purgatory is not my path. I don't take the sound of the dead, not because I despise it, but because my sound is still hot. The death god shrugged slightly. A stubborn girl. Alas. At this moment, a soft sigh spread throughout the star. However, there were only Death God and Jiao Yinling on this star. The two of them looked in the direction of the dam at the same time, only to see 2 figures standing on the dam. The Death God raised his eyebrows and stood up in disbelief. You're back. With Han Fei's appearance, a channel appeared on the dam. Although the Death God didn't know where the channel could lead, he knew that some things were changing. At this moment, Shimin Linglan stood on her tiptoes and whispered in Han Fei's ear, I know the pain of waiting, the heart-wrenching pain. Let Xiaojiu come with us, okay? At this moment, there was a trace of slyness in Shimin Linglan's eyes. She felt that Jiao Yinling was very similar to her. Without anyone familiar in this world, she only had eyes for Han Fei. Therefore, she was lonely. If she had to live with Xiao Shaochan and the others in the future, Shimin Linglan felt that she had to make a close friend, which would help her. Han Fei looked at Jiao Yinling with a strange expression. Jiao Yinling was also looking at him, and there was a light in her eyes, pure and clear. Han Fei couldn't help but think of the time when he and Jiao Yinling pretended to be husband and wife and lived together. At that time, the sun rose and set. That might be the most ordinary and simple life in his life. It would be a lie to say that he didn't have feelings for her. It was just that he couldn't stop in the past. Now that he had returned and she was still here, he shouldn't let her down anymore. Swish. In the next moment, Han Fei took Shimin Linglan's hand and appeared at the top of the mountain, in front of Jiao Yinling. The creation void spiritual drum felt that its entire body was trembling. It felt an unparalleled pressure, so it shrank into the body of Jiao Yinling, not daring to appear again, let alone clamor like before. Han Fei raised his hand and hung it in the air. After a pause, he gently touched Jiao Yingling's head. Okay, you're already standing beside me. Let's go home. However, Han Fei's actions and words seemed to have stabbed Jiao Yinling deeply. Jiao Yinling's small face, which was trying to maintain calmness, couldn't help but start to twist. She frowned slightly, her lower lip was twisted, and her eyes were instantly filled with tears. Bean-sized tears fell. It was a grievance, a great grievance. Boo-hoo. Jiao Yinling fell into Han Fei's arms and cried. A moment later, her tears drenched Han Fei's collar. Shimin Linglan covered the corner of her mouth and smiled. Han Fei stood still until Jiao Yinling was a little embarrassed from crying. Then she lowered her head and struggled out of Han Fei's arms. But her hand grabbed a corner of Han Fei's clothes so tightly that her fingers turned white, fearing that if she let go, he would be gone. The death god spoke again. Now, can you talk to me? Han Fei looked at the death god and smiled. Senior, don't be hasty. Wait a moment and you will know everything. With that, Han Fei, Shimin Linglan, and Jiao Yinling disappeared from this star. Only the death god was still holding a teacup in his hand, feeling puzzled. He was very curious, but the other party was in a hurry to go home. What could he do? Just wait. They had waited for several eras. Why couldn't they wait a bit longer? But not long after Han Fei left, a series of swishes sounded. A big-headed Kylan took the lead and walked out of the passage, muttering, "There must be something extraordinary behind the altar," but Han Fei just doesn't say it. He must be keeping us in suspense. My heart is itching with curiosity. Huh. I'm really back. Ha ha ha, I'm back, I'm back. Stupid tree. Stupid tree, we're back. Your brother is back. In the next moment, the big-headed Kylan saw a familiar person holding a teacup and looking at him dumbfounded. Yes, the death god was indeed dumbfounded. He felt his hair stand on end and his scalp tingle. In the next moment, a lazy voice said, "Okay, keep a low profile. Don't shout. Come with me to find Susu. She woke me up back then. No matter how many lives she has experienced now, she can only be mine." Immediately afterward, a domineering voice snorted, "This is no longer my era. I heard from Void that too many things have happened here. I wonder if there are any acquaintances left." The death god watched dumbfounded as one strong master after another returned. And their tones more or less sounded a little emotional. As soon as Li Daoi, Song Tian, and the others walked out, they met the eyes of the death god. The eyelids of the death god were twitching crazily. Finally, he slowly said, "Do you drink tea?" "Ah." At this moment, on Han Fei's body, two women were screaming and crying. One was hugging him, and the other was even riding on his head. Han Fei said helplessly, "You're already a big girl. How can you still ride on your father's neck? It's none of your business." "Boo-hoo. I thought you would never come back. You don't know how I spent the past 100,000 years. My mother and I worked so hard to cultivate. Do you know how tiring it was? Can't you let me fool around for a while? Hey, okay, just ride me. When your uncles and grandpa see it, your image will really be gone. I don't care. Leave me alone." Han Fei was helpless and then looked at Xia Xiaochan, who was wrapped around him. "You're already an adult. How can you act like our daughter? People might think you're my daughter too." Xia Xiaochan stuck to Han Fei like a magnet, greedy for the warmth of Han Fei's body, and said fiercely and cutely, "Someone abandoned his wife and son for righteousness and went on a long journey. We didn't dare to say anything. Nor did we dare to object. We could only wait eagerly for 100,000 years. 100,000 years. When I come back in 100,000 years, you actually despise me for being too heavy." Han Fei was lost for words. "When did I say you're heavy? Are you kidding me?" Xia Xiaochan said fiercely, "You just think I'm too heavy. It's only been a while, and you want me to come down. You weren't like this before." Han Fei bared his teeth and was lost for words. "Then what was I like before?" Xia Xiaochan said slyly, "You'll definitely coax me, saying even if you hang onto me for a lifetime I won't feel tired, let alone just for a while. Han Fei, okay. Just hang on to me then." This time, Shiman Linglan and Jiao Yingling didn't come up. Shiman Linglan was talking with Jiao Yingling, asking what had happened in the past 100,000 years. She also told her about the simple things that happened to them on the path of no return in the past 100,000 years. The two of them occasionally looked at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan, who were still Hugging. Shiman Linglan said with a smile, when he was in the Grand Myriad. Mountains, even in his dreams, he called Xia Xiaochan's name. Now it seems that Xia Xiaochan is passionate and unrestrained, very different from us. Lingling, you are too obedient. I know that you once accompanied Han Fei through several very important stages of his life. If you had learned from Xia Xiaochan, you would have eaten him up long ago. Jiuyin Ling pursed her lips slightly. But I heard that the love between you and him is deep in the bones. It's a kind of mutual dependence and support. It's really fascinating. And I can't learn Xiaochan's personality in the end. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan was biting Han Fei's ear. I'm not surprised at all that you brought Xiaojiu home, but today, you have to save Xiaobai, no matter what. Xiaobai is so pitiful. She has turned into a tree. This time, even Han Chani said, I agree with my mother on this. Aunt Xiaobai is too lonely. Aunt Xiaobai may have occupied 80% of the loneliness in the world. I saw Aunt Xiaobai melt into the world tree bit by bit until only her eyes were left. Father, go save Aunt Xiaobai. Han Fei's heart stirred. He already knew Xiaobai's situation. As soon as he came back, he immediately went to Xia Xiaochan, Han Chani, and the others to see how they were doing. Therefore, he naturally found that Luo Xiaobai was in a very bad state at the moment. Originally, the sutra he gave Luo Xiaobai could indeed maintain Luo Xiaobai's state. However, Luo Xiaobai had made a breakthrough and became a dominator, so her situation became even more serious. She was almost one with the world tree. Unlike Li Daoyi monopolized 80% of luck of the end of the chaotic era and the primordial era. He had great luck, so he could break free from Luo Xiaobai's state. However, Luo Xiaobai couldn't. She didn't have that kind of luck. If he hadn't rushed back in time, she would have been lost. The chaotic star sea. Under the world tree. Han Fei came to the place where Luo Xiaobai disappeared. When Han Fei arrived, he saw a pair of eyes that were about to fuse with this world. As if seeing Han Fei's return, a trace of brilliance appeared in her eyes, but this brilliance quickly dimmed. Alas! Han Fei sighed slightly. Actually, before I left, I wanted to advise you not to cultivate again. Han Fei raised his hand slightly, and the world tree began to sway. As the billions of leaves swayed slightly, a wisp of consciousness was shaken. In the next moment, infinite energy gathered, and a branch of the world tree was leaving. The consciousness, energy, and branches were blending and reshaping. After a while, Luo Xiaobai, who had her hair down and was wearing a loose white dress, was finally pulled out of the world tree by Han Fei. However, at this moment, Luo Xiaobai still seemed to be dizzy and half asleep. Then, Han Fei tapped between Luo Xiaobai's eyebrows. At that moment, Luo Xiaobai's past was recalled and her feelings were strengthened by him. Although he could directly modify Luo Xiaobai's bloodline and change her life form, would Luo Xiaobai still be Luo Xiaobai? Therefore, Han Fei only strengthened Luo Xiaobai's emotional level and gave her some insights into the Tao of all living beings. In the past, Li Daoyi could break free from this state, so could Luo Xiaobai. At this moment, Luo Xiaobai finally woke up. She rubbed her eyes with the backs of her hands, and the sun poured down on her. A breeze blew past her long hair and blew up the hem of her clothes. Luo Xiaobai was shocked and quickly came back to herself, only to see Han Fei looking at her with a smile. A dream? Luo Xiaobai blinked a few times, raised her head slightly, and looked straight at Han Fei. Then, she naturally reached out and pinched Han Fei's face heavily. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? Luo Xiaobai blinked, and Han Fei said helplessly, it hurts a little. Why do you have to use the power of a dominator to pinch people? Huh. Luo Xiaobai finally came back to herself and couldn't help but stare at Han Fei. Have you really returned? Han Fei smiled. Yes. Now that I've finished the path, it's time to come back. Now that I'm back, you don't have to sleep anymore. With that, the two fell silent. In the end, Han Fei said, turn around and let me tie your hair up. Han Fei was combing Luo Xiaobai's hair with his hand when he said indifferently, time is passing. Xiaobai, it's been hundreds of thousands of years. Yu and Kuang have already had many children and grandchildren. Shouldn't you get married? Luo Xiaobai's body trembled slightly, and then she turned her head and looked at Han Fei from the corner of her eye. So? Han Fei chuckled. Your standards are too high and your emotions are too weak. I'm afraid. In the end, you can only be mine. Luo Xiaobai turned her head and put on an imperceptible smile. After a long time, Luo Xiaobai said calmly, that depends on whether you can style my hair beautifully. Several years later. In the former ancestral land of the human race, the old site of the yin-yang world in the raging sea. In a sea area, a few children each carried a big fish bigger than their bodies, chasing and running wildly in the waves. Ah! Zhang Bushuai, take my attack with the iron-headed fish. The child who was chased took out another big fish from the waves. He laughed and rushed back, brandishing two big fish and shouting, Yu Weiwu, take my attack with two iron-headed fish. Clang! 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 Amidst the clanging sounds of their fight, a boy suddenly jumped out from under them. Carrying a big fish with dragon whiskers, he smashed it at the two of them. Ah! Ah! Tang Xiaoyi, you cheated. How dare you use the dragon-headed fish to fight? The boy who launched the sneak attack immediately threw away the dragon-headed fish in his hand and ran away. Hee, all is fair in war. On the other side, in the waves, a little girl with a watermelon hairstyle and hundreds of vines appeared around her. She was holding an iron-headed fish and stepping on a broken wooden board, attacking the huge waves. Suddenly, a dragon-headed fish was smashed over, knocking both her and the fish over. Gurgle. The little girl emerged from the water, spat out a mouthful of seawater, and said angrily, who did this? Come out. Zhang Bushuai and the other two laughed. Yu Weiwu shouted, Han Luo Luo, you're the one I want to smash. Why didn't you make surfboards for us? Yes, yes. Zhang Bushuai and Tang Xiaoyi echoed and laughed. The little girl named Han Luo Luo was so angry that her face turned red. In the next moment, hundreds of vines emerged from the sea, each with an iron-headed fish tied to it. Shoot. Oh my God. Run. Han Luo Luo, I was just kidding. A moment later, Zhang Bushuai and the other two were beaten black and blue. They shouted, Old Ren, help. Teacher Ren, won't your conscience hurt if you just watch like this? Teacher Ren? In the next moment, a rough voice shouted, Bah, 3 men can't beat a little girl, and you still have the cheek to ask for help? Come here, each of you. Practice 108 desolate god bodies. Huh. No. Teacher Ren, you'd better go about your business. We can handle this. Ren Tianfei appeared and snorted. Are you afraid now? It's too late. Practice. At this moment, a nine-tailed mantis shrimp swam down from the sky and said, Senior Ren, it's getting late. Many guests are coming today. Why don't you punish them later? Humph. You guys are lucky. Uncle Retian, pull us up. Nine-Tails said angrily, I told you yesterday that there were guests coming today, but you insisted on running in the sea. Fine, you can wait to be scolded when you go back. Another moment later. On a floating island. In a large manor, the sound of flutes was melodious. In a large open-air kitchen, Lu Renquang was holding a dried fish in his mouth and humming a small tune. His hand was moving up and down in the void, and hundreds of big pots were shaking crazily in midair. 100 flames rose to the sky. It was a scene, but not so beautiful. Han Fei was seriously tasting a row of sauces on the side. He said, Quang Quang. Your new sauce is extraordinary. How did you come up with it? Lu Renquang snorted. Who am I? Since you resigned as the god of cookery, my ingenious ideas have been surging like a spring. You can call me the great inventor now. Next door, Zhang Xuanyu and Yi Shiyan were sitting in the kitchen eating melon seeds. There was already a spread of melon seed shells on the ground in front of them. Zhang Xuanyu said, By the way, who are Xia Xiaochan and the others, picking up? Why are they gone for so long? Han Fei said grumpily, You'll find out later. Hey, clean up all your melon seeds. If you have nothing to do, go over there to watch chess. On the other side, Old Han and Tang Gu were playing chess. Tang Gu was frowning, and Jiang Linxian was watching the battle with a smile. Hearing that they were going to let Zhang Xuanyu and Yi Shiyan come over to watch the game, Tang Gu immediately stopped them. Don't. These two will make noises and disturb me while eating melon seeds. Zhang Xuanyu shrugged. Alas. I'd better just eat melon seeds here. Click, click, click. The flute sound was melodious, mellow, and cheerful. Jiao Yinling was leaning against the purple bamboo by the side of the house, playing. Not far away from her, Shiman Linglan was sitting on a chair sunbathing, holding a bunch of red grapes in her hand. Every time she stuffed a grape into her mouth, a faint power would rush out of her body, but before it reached half an inch, the energy would be sucked back by her. From time to time, Shiman Linglan would stroke her belly, because it was already bulging. At this moment, after they finished eating, Shiman Linglan hurriedly shouted, Xiaojiao, come and eat too. There are so many of them. I can't finish them alone. Jiao Yinling chuckled. They're all for you to eat. I heard that by eating grapes, you can give birth to a baby with big eyes. Xiaobai ate a lot of grapes when she was pregnant. As soon as Jiao Yinling said so, she heard a group of noisy voices. Dad, I'm being bullied. Dad, Han Luoluo is bullying us. Uncle Han Fei, take care of Han Luoluo. Control her strength. Yes, you'd better seal her. Humph. On Nine-Tails' head, the little girl crossed her arms and said angrily, Who asked you to smash the fish at me? Han Fei chuckled. You several men can't beat my daughter. How do you have the cheek to complain? Squeak. At this moment, a door opened and Luo Xiaobai walked out with a book in her hand. Han Luoluo immediately jumped off Nine-Tails' head and bloomed beside Luo. Xiaobai like a flower. Mom, they hit me first. Luo Xiaobai gently knocked Han Luolua's head with a book. Naughty. Okay. Behave yourself. There will be guests later. Hula. Hula. The three boys who were complaining just now had forgotten that they had been beaten up. At this moment, they all rushed to the kitchen. Lu Renquang immediately shouted, "Don't come over. There are guests coming. Whoever dares to steal food will be punished." At this moment, beams of light appeared between the heavens and earth. After approaching this floating island, those lights turned into terrifying existences. There were ferocious kylands, divine trees that reached tens of thousands of feet, giant beasts with iron backs like mountains, giant birds that blotted out the sky, and azure dragons swimming in the void. Wow! The children looked up at the sky and exclaimed. Xiao Xiaochan and Han Chani landed first and then said, "Everyone, this is it." Han Fei looked up and said angrily, Hey, that's enough. I only have such a big space here. Are you going to collapse my island? Ha ha ha. Alright, let's become smaller. The primordial kylan transformed into the size of a mutt, and the giant beasts transformed into humans with a thought. In the blink of an eye, there were hundreds of people standing in the manor. These people were carrying bags of various sizes. Seeing the children staring at him, the primordial kylan and the others felt a little embarrassed. They immediately reached into their bags and took out a godly weapon, a divine fruit Dao book with great Dao runes flowing on it. Then, he roared in the gentlest tone he felt, "Come, boys and girls, this is your gift." Boo-hoo. As soon as the primordial kylan spoke, Han Luoluo, Zhang Bushuai, and the others were frightened to tears. Smack. Li Daoi slapped the primordial kylan's head. "How many times have I told you to speak softly?" The primordial kylan was also speechless. "Isn't my voice soft?" Beside him, Songtian was also speechless. "Look at what you took out. Is that something a child can play with?" Han Fei was lost for words. "Hey. I said I would treat you to a meal, but what's going on? Are you moving?" Songtian laughed and said, "Junior brother, we have to have a place to stay. Besides, it's better to have more people together, right? We'll settle down here this time." With that, Songtian beckoned to everyone, "Hey, everyone, stop standing. Let's find our territories first." Han Fei, Lu Renquang, Zhang Xuanyu, and the others also looked at Han Fei, thinking, why did these immortals come to live with us? You didn't mention it before. Luo Xiaobai said, "Seniors, it's good for you to live here in seclusion. However, hundreds of thousands of ordinary people will move here soon. Seniors, you should indeed choose a good place." Upon hearing this, Han Fei thought to himself, Luo Xiaobai is really smart. I wanted to set some rules for them, but once ordinary people live here, they will have to restrain themselves greatly if they want to live here in seclusion, so I don't have to do that. However, the immortals immediately knew what Luo Xiaobai meant. Someone laughed. "It doesn't matter. We're here to live in seclusion, not to fight. We'll seal our strength later." Han Fei smiled and said, "That's it. Don't look for territory now. Let's start the banquet. Come on, let's start eating." A moment later, Zhang Bushuai and the other two were beaten black and blue. They shouted, "Old Ren, help. Teacher Ren, won't your conscience hurt if you just watch like this? Teacher Ren?" In the next moment, a rough voice shouted, "Bah, 3 men can't beat a little Girl, and you still have the cheek to ask for help? Come here, each of you. Practice 108 desolate god bodies. Huh. No. Teacher Ren, you'd better go about your business. We can handle this. Ren Tianfei appeared and snorted. Are you afraid now? It's too late. Practice. At this moment, a nine-tailed mantis shrimp swam down from the sky and said, Senior Ren, it's getting late. Many guests are coming today. Why don't you punish them later? Humph. You guys are lucky. Uncle Retian, pull us up. Nine-Tails said angrily, I told you yesterday that there were guests coming today, but you insisted on running in the sea. Fine, you can wait to be scolded when you go back. Another moment later. On a floating island. In a large manor, the sound of flutes was melodious. In a large open-air kitchen, Lu Renquang was holding a dried fish in his mouth and humming a small tune. His hand was moving up and down in the void, and hundreds of big pots were shaking crazily in midair. 100 flames rose to the sky. It was a scene, but not so beautiful. Han Fei was seriously tasting a row of sauces on the side. He said, Quang Quang. Your new sauce is extraordinary. How did you come up with it? Lu Renquang snorted. Who am I? Since you resigned as the god of cookery, my ingenious ideas have been surging like a spring. You can call me the great inventor now. Next door, Zhang Xuanyu and Yi Xian were sitting in the kitchen eating melon seeds. There was already a spread of melon seed shells on the ground in front of them. Zhang Xuanyu said, By the way, who are Xia Xiaochan and the others, picking up? Why are they gone for so long? Han Fei said grumpily, You'll find out later. Hey, clean up all your melon seeds. If you have nothing to do, go over there to watch chess. On the other side, Old Han and Tang Gu were playing chess. Tang Gu was frowning, and Jiang Linxian was watching the battle with a smile. Hearing that they were going to let Zhang Xuanyu and Yi Xian come over to watch the game, Tang Gu immediately stopped them. Don't. These two will make noises and disturb me while eating melon seeds. Zhang Xuanyu shrugged. Alas. I'd better just eat melon seeds here. Click, click, click. The flute sound was melodious, mellow, and cheerful. Jiao Yinling was leaning against the purple bamboo by the side of the house, playing. Not far away from her, Shiman Linglan was sitting on a chair sunbathing, holding a bunch of red grapes in her hand. Every time she stuffed a grape into her mouth, a faint power would rush out of her body, but before it reached half an inch, the energy would be sucked back by her. From time to time, Shiman Linglan would stroke her belly, because it was already bulging. At this moment, after they finished eating, Shiman Linglan hurriedly shouted, Xiao Jiao, come and eat too. There are so many of them. I can't finish them alone. Jiao Yinling chuckled. They're all for you to eat. I heard that by eating grapes, you can give birth to a baby with big eyes. Xiaobai ate a lot of grapes when she was pregnant. As soon as Jiao Yinling said so, she heard a group of noisy voices. Dad, I'm being bullied. Dad, Han Luoluo is bullying us. Uncle Han Fei, take care of Han Luoluo. Control her strength. Yes, you'd better seal her. Humph. On Nine-Tails' head, the little girl crossed her arms and said angrily, Who asked you to smash the fish at me? Han Fei chuckled. You several men can't beat my daughter. How do you have the cheek to complain? Squeak. At this moment, a door opened and Luo Xiaobai walked out with a book in her hand. Han Luo immediately jumped off Nine Tails' head and bloomed beside Luo Xiaobai like a flower. Mom, they hit me first. Luo Xiaobai gently knocked Han Luolua's head with a book. Naughty. Okay. Behave yourself. There will be guests later. Hula. Hula. The three boys who were complaining just now had forgotten that they had been beaten up. At this moment, they all rushed to the kitchen. Lu Renquang immediately shouted, "Don't come over. There are guests coming. Whoever dares to steal food will be punished." At this moment, beams of light appeared between the heavens and earth. After approaching this floating island, those lights turned into terrifying existences. There were ferocious kylans, divine trees that reached tens of thousands of feet, giant beasts with iron backs like mountains, giant birds that blotted out the sky, and azure dragons swimming in the void. Wow! The children looked up at the sky and exclaimed. Xia Xiaochan and Han Chani landed first and then said, "Everyone, this is it." Han Fei looked up and said angrily, Hey, that's enough. I only have such a big space here. Are you going to collapse my island? Ha ha ha. Alright, let's become smaller. The primordial kylan transformed into the size of a mutt, and the giant beasts transformed into humans with a thought. In the blink of an eye, there were hundreds of people standing in the manor. These people were carrying bags of various sizes. Seeing the children staring at him, the primordial kylan and the others felt a little embarrassed. They immediately reached into their bags and took out a godly weapon, a divine fruit Dao book with great Dao runes flowing on it. Then, he roared in the gentlest tone he felt, "Come, boys and girls, this is your gift." Boo-hoo. As soon as the primordial kylan spoke, Han Luoluo, Zhang Bushuai, and the others were frightened to tears. Smack. Li Daoi slapped the primordial kylan's head. "How many times have I told you to speak softly?" The primordial kylan was also speechless. "Isn't my voice soft?" Beside him, Songtian was also speechless. "Look at what you took out. Is that something a child can play with?" Han Fei was lost for words. "Hey. I said I would treat you to a meal, but what's going on? Are you moving?" Songtian laughed and said, "Junior brother, we have to have a place to stay. Besides, it's better to have more people together, right? We'll settle down here this time." With that, Songtian beckoned to everyone, "Hey, everyone, stop standing. Let's find our territories first." Han Fei, Lu Renquang, Zhang Xuanyu, and the others also looked at Han Fei, thinking, "Why did these immortals come to live with us? You didn't mention it before." Luo Xiaobai said, "Seniors, it's good for you to live here in seclusion. However, hundreds of thousands of ordinary people will move here soon. Seniors, you should indeed choose a good place." Upon hearing this, Han Fei thought to himself, Luo Xiaobai is really smart. I wanted to set some rules for them, but once ordinary people live here, they will have to restrain themselves greatly if they want to live here in seclusion, so I don't have to do that. However, the immortals immediately knew what Luo Xiaobai meant. Someone laughed. "It doesn't matter. We're here to live in seclusion, not to fight. We'll seal our strength later." Han Fei smiled and said, "That's it. Don't look for territory now. Let's start the banquet. Come on, let's start eating." The novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue. Reading tomorrow, everyone.